it's been a minute. Welcome to the Honest Property Podcast.
We're your hosts, Becky and Ruth, and on this podcast we talk all things business and property investing. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about something we've been waiting to talk about for a long time, and that is a strategy that is recently very popular in the property space, and it's called rent to serviced accommodation, also known as rent to rent. And we want to explain what that is, because a lot of people are curious about this particular strategy, because it's been introduced as a way to get into property with very little money down, and not as many responsibilities, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want to explain what rent to service accommodation is?
Rent to service accommodation is where you legally rent a property from a landlord who has given you full permission. It's illegal if you don't get full permission from the landlord. Just putting that out there. It's with full consent, with a company contract in place that allows you to be able to rent the property. So it's not subletting, just to clarify. It is with permission to be able to rent out a landlord's property and make income from it.
So a good way to describe this is like how certain chain hotels, like, for example, Premier Inn is an example, isn't it? There's one nearby, actually. They don't own the building. They just do a long-term lease within the building or on the land of somebody that owns the property. So they don't own it themselves, and they run their hospitality, their hotel business in it, but they don't own it. So it's like this R2SA, or rent to service accommodation, is the same concept, but generally on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
And we have done that strategy.
So we'll go into why we decided to go into that strategy. It was a bit of a shiny penny. I think over our whole social media, we do say that it was our shiny penny strategy that we did.
I don't think we admitted it that blatantly. Did we?
Maybe we didn't enough, but it was a shiny penny strategy that we did. We were waiting to remortgage
on properties
that we owned, and we thought,
what can we do in the meantime?
That's not going to cost a lot of money.
We sold our pet care business, which was basically taking up most of the hours in our day. And we're like, okay, well, maybe the next logical step is to do something else that is still within the property space, and this brand new way of doing property that promised like good cash flow was rent to service accommodation.
We also say that we had service accommodation beforehand, so we know how service accommodation works, and so we were like, we get great profit from this already. We know how it works. Rent to SA is the one, because it's not like we didn't know how to do service accommodation.
We already had two.
Yeah, so we were very three. So we were very.
We understood
how the process worked.
And in theory, it all sounds fantastic. It sounds like, then why wouldn't you just, maybe if it isn't your mortgage that you're paying, you are paying the landlord's the rent. So it's like the mortgage and like whatever the landlord is charging you. But if you can find properties in the right areas and do your due diligence and see that they're going to profit you, and then you also get the satisfaction of making a property, instead of just doing white walls, which is obviously all you really tend to need to do with buy-to-lets.
Buy-to-lets, HMOs, you do get luxury HMOs now, but generally with those kind of properties, people make it their home. So you don't want to be making funky patterns on the walls.
But with serviced accommodation,
it was we just get bored. So it was a way it was a way to have a creative outlet, and we really enjoyed interiors, especially in our 20s when we had more energy.
Okay. So that's how we got into it. We were like, it all makes sense on paper. The numbers work. We were looking around. The first one I found it on Rightmove. I went and did the viewing. Ruth was in Cornwall or something. I was like, I think I found it.
No, I was in Cyprus.
You were in Cyprus. And the landlord was lovely. Oh my God. I think I blocked that one from my memory because it was such an experience.
What?
The,
Oh, the lady
one
next door.
the neighbor.
What a learning. Well, I mean, I'm glad for the experience, but also what a headache.
Okay, so that's how we found one of them. And then, and then the others, I think we were like, we had a year to wait to remortgage. So we were like, okay, for this whole year, we're just going to lock down on doing rent to service accommodation. So we found like 6 in a year. One we found ourselves, the rest we did use a sourcer to find the rest of them. So a sourcer is another new thing in the property world, relatively anyway.
Because we always found our properties ourselves because we know we know our area.
It takes
we
time
know
to do the due diligence. And
yeah,
stuff,
but you learn that. We learned how to do that through our education. So that was something that, but because we were also still running a pet care business, time was of the essence.
Yeah.
So we needed to find the most time efficient way of finding the next properties, and that was with using a sourcer.
So a sourcer is somebody who basically does all the due diligence for you. They are somebody who basically packages a deal. So they go view they identify the properties, they view it to make sure that it's suitable, and then they put all the numbers, all the data about this this project on paper, and you can get different sources specializing in different things. So you might have someone who's specializing in flips. Somebody flips is buying
a property
houses,
and then
doing it up and then selling it. Somebody who's doing rent to service accommodation, which is what we did. A myriad of different strategies, but
also to say we got the sourcer because we didn't know the patch as well. We know Bristol like the back of our hand, but we decided to do rent to SA in Cardiff,
which was more affordable
than
Bristol.
Yeah.
And there were very few sources in the southwest. Actually, there seems to be a lot more activity in the property realm up north than there are in the southwest. So
yeah,
our option, if you're on the southwest, please connect with
us on Instagram, because we'd love to be connected, because there's not that many or maybe there's a reason why you're not on social media.
Please say hello,
please.
So we found the sourcer, and then found us some deals, and we took 5.
Yes. So we'll talk more about sourcing in another podcast, actually.
That's a whole episode in itself. We can go way more into that. If you're interested in the idea of sourcing,
and that you want to know how to find the best sourcer and like what to look out for,
don't do anything until you watch that episode first. But for now, we're going to focus on rent to service accommodation. So what are the pros and the cons of serviced accommodation? The pros are, on paper, it all makes sense. You rent out somebody's property as long as you can find a way to make sure, as long as you can find that property is going to do really well as a serviced accommodation. So serviced accommodation is basically what traditionally you would think of as an Airbnb. And Airbnb is just somebody who isn't a tenant, they're a guest, and they stay for generally a few days to maybe a few weeks, potentially up to like 3 months.
Yeah, so then that's called a mid-term letting. So it's anything that's under 6 months. So it's from short to mid-term.
Yep. And the pros are the cash flow at one point was really, really good.
Yeah.
I think it was taking off for us, especially at the beginning. We put a lot of effort and energy into making sure that those properties were as good as we can make them look, as nice as we can make them look. We got professional photography for them. We did everything we could on our side that was within our control to make them good properties. We then, because Ruth and I, our goal is to be financially free. Oh, sorry, not. Yeah, well, yeah, but like.
Talk at the mic. Sorry.
So Ruth and I, our goal is to have time and location freedom. As well as financial freedom.
And whoa, if you're doing service accommodation, that does not exist. Sorry, I'm just going to say that, especially if you want to be hands-on with it. I think this was also a coming of realization. We were going through a space personally where we were trying to figure out why we were doing business the way we were doing and how we wanted to evolve it. And I think we got stuck into, we need to continue being busy hustling, and that's
we were so used to just being busy, so busy all the time, and this definitely kept us busy. So we would paint ourselves, install the furniture ourselves.
You like paint ourselves,
huh?
Like
paint our body? No, probably a little bit. But we would do all of the heavy lifting ourselves, and it was tiring.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And I'd given birth and I had carpal tunnel. I had to wear my wrist, what do you call it?
Yeah.
My wristband thing.
And driving to Cardiff and back, it took ages. Well, you don't, it's not that far, but it does, like if you're doing it every day, because you're trying to get 6 properties ready, up and running.
I mean, in all honesty, we could have just stayed over, but I had a young baby and I didn't want to be losing time with my child in the evening. So that's why we were traveling back and forth, because my priority was my child.
And then we ended up renting a garage as well as using your garage to be able to store all of the furniture.
You need storage.
The furniture, you need backup stuff for when things break. We didn't go in thinking, we weren't naive to think that it was going to be impeccable the entire time.
No, because our experience with our own service accommodations, we know that things break or go missing, and so you need to be able to keep stock of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So we had storage for that, which
I just want to say as well, if you've never done service accommodation before you do rent to SA, you're in for a shock.
You're in for a shock.
You're in for a shock because if you don't understand that
the work
involved and running and the business, like running it like it's a full on business, you're in for shock.
I think everyone would agree if they manage a service accommodation, you are 24/7 on call. You are not ever really going to be able to clock off, because humans are so complex, and when there's such a high turnover of different types of people coming in and out of the property, you need to be sort of on standby all of the time.
Like even if you have people staying for long mid-term letting, even if it was like 3 to 4 months, you're still being contacted constantly because they are guests.
They're guests. They're expecting a service. They're expecting...
It's a service.
It's hospitality. Service. They're expecting service. They expect things to work. If something's a little bit wrong, you will know about it.
Yeah.
If someone's locked out at a random time because they lost the key and you don't have they can't access the master key lock or whatever, you'll know about it. We did install... We did, honestly, everything we could to streamline this business. So we had monitors and remote surveillance things to make sure that we could keep an eye on the security and the noise levels of the property, so we weren't disturbing neighbours.
By the way, this is all influenced by a book that we did read called Clockwork.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll recommend that. It was about how to streamline everything well enough to get your time back.
Our lesson from our pet care business is we were very much in it, but when we
even if we loved it, we were very much in it. Yeah.
Very much in it, limited time away, which is why we wanted to focus on time and location freedom with our next chapter of business, which is why when the Saturn return. But when we went to rent a serviced accommodation, we're like, okay, let's get into it. But everything is going to be streamlined so that it operates without us having to be here. And the cost of that was getting the remote monitor, the remote surveillance. And even with these devices, these tools, you cannot prepare yourself for the amount of work involved. There's only so much AI and surveillance can do. We had this minute monitor. Highly recommend it still if you are doing service accommodation. Like we still have one left. We went from 10 to 1 in the space of a year. They're like 2 years. We had like 10 for a year, and then we just were like, no, let's just get rid of them all. And then we're now on 1. But if you want to make sure you can keep an eye on property from far away, minute monitor and the blink outdoor camera motion sensor thingy
Yeah.
is a good way to do it. The only thing is they run out of battery or someone disconnects them.
Yes, you have to get if you have management in place, or if you are managing, then you need to make sure that you are on top of making sure that they're working.
Yeah, but we would get notifications in the middle of the night saying, and when you could, like, there's nothing you can really do about it, saying that your guests have exceeded the decibel threshold,
Or they're smoking.
What can you do? Like, you can't I don't want to turn up at 3 a.m. and tell them you need to quieten down, especially if I'm in a totally different city. And when you upset the neighbors, or you cause damage to the property, or they cause damage to the property, you have the landlord to answer to and the landlord's neighbors to answer to. And that's really unpleasant.
Yeah.
Really unpleasant. Oh, we had some experiences with a neighbor who was really
Volatile.
very volatile woman. And I think that's one risk. So there's some landlords potentially, this is just a theory, my theory about this particular property. It was our first serviced accommodation that we'd found ourselves. And the
best lessons.
And I think the reason that it was so easily let to us, because it isn't that easy to convince or like share, like have a landlord be on board with the idea of having an Airbnb essentially in their property, even
if you're having longer term guests in there.
Yeah,
I think the media's highlighted Airbnb as being like the most awful thing, that you're having loads of people partying in properties that are next to you, but that's not the case. People use Airbnb for so many different reasons, especially if they're like working,
they're transitioning between house sales.
Exactly. Yeah,
they're coming to visit for a funeral or a university.
They're nomadic as well. Like there's so many reasons that people use Airbnb, and they're not just people having a party.
Yeah. So I think the reason that particular landlord was very easily swayed to rent it out to us as a company let was probably because he had already experiences with the neighbor next door. Actually, I already know he had experiences with the neighbor next door, but it was too late by the time I found out. There was already existing hostility towards
us,
the house, and she was absolutely livid and thought that the landlord wanted to spite her by allowing an Airbnb. It wasn't just Airbnb. I just keep saying Airbnb because everyone knows about Airbnb, but these listings are on booking.com, Airbnb, VRBO, lots of different places that everyone are not as popular, but everyone knows about Airbnb. So I just keep saying that. But she was livid that he allowed hospitality business basically to be running next door to her, because they had pre-existing issues, a pre-existing dispute about some sort of renovation that had happened previously, and the walls were very thin, which is weird because we could hear her dog through the wall pretty easily, and we did everything. We had the monitors and the decibel threshold. We put signs all over the house.
She was filming our guests in the garden.
She filmed our guests in the garden. It was a
and
sunny Saturday afternoon. They were having a barbecue, entirely in their rights to do so.
Yeah, there was only like 2 or 3 of them, they were allowed. Like, there wasn't loads of people in the house.
No.
It was just...
She filmed them.
She filmed them over the fence.
And then complained at our management about them. So I think that's the thing. It's not... If you're in a detached house or a semi-detached house, be wary, because neighbours won't like that. And I think this R2SA trend was popping off, that it was just being... It was more in the media, and they were making a really good point that by turning residential homes, which most of these R2SAs are, into hospitality businesses, that reduces the market for people to have actual homes.
Yeah, so we do agree with that.
There is an ethical issue there when it comes to that, and I think in residential areas, it's weird because Airbnb really is designed to be a home away from home, and I personally use Airbnb because Airbnb. I want a local experience. I want to be in the local community and have an authentic experience in the place that I'm visiting and not be in a hotel.
I personally don't like being in a hotel. I'd rather be in an Airbnb.
Have my own kitchen.
Yeah, I like being able to cook and not be confined to just a bedroom.
Yeah. So initially we were like, oh, this is great. I think this is a nice business. But in hindsight, we have different opinions now about what Airbnb or serviced accommodation should be.
I think it's mainly because Airbnb has evolved so much in the last few years, like from when we first started doing it, and it's not even been that long in like the grand scheme, like less than 5 years. It's changed so much, like the market's just changed so much, and I think that's a lot to do with people jumping on the bandwagon of rent to rent.
And it becomes soulless. And I think Airbnb was meant to be it originally was meant to be a sweet idea of, okay, I'll open up my home, my space for a couch surfer, somebody who's visiting. And it became like there were so many cowboys trying to make a quick buck, that jumped onto R2SA because it's so easy to get into. You basically you have to put down the deposit. Like a regular tenant, you put down your deposit for the house and your first month's rent, then you make the place beautiful, then pop a listing online. Yeah. I think I digressed a bit. The other thing we did to streamline the whole process is we had management. We had management depending on what city the property was in. We had management. I don't know if we've already done a podcast on management.
We have.
Check that one out. I'll link that one as well down below. But there's different types of management. Serviced accommodation management. I totally appreciate how much work they have to do. And it isn't possible to be perfect all the time.
No.
And you just don't know how a guest is going to be in reality compared to when you try and vet them online before accepting a booking. And that goes for even tenants. Like, you don't know what you're going to get until they get there. And I think the risk with somebody who's staying short term is they know they're going to leave anyway, so it doesn't even matter. There's not much to lose for them. There's not much on the line. There's not much. It's not like they're losing the home that they live in.
Yeah, I mean, we've even experienced people just stealing cushions.
Oh, I hate that. I love my cushions. Yeah. So our recent one. Okay, so we had all these properties, and in all honesty, okay, the pros are the cash flow was decent. We had social housing in some of them, and they paid handsomely. But then they disappeared. Well, they left after a few months, and there were holes in the wall, broken windows. The surveillance was off. Okay, so you can install the surveillance. They always pull it out. It's always disconnected. Someone disconnects the surveillance, so you can't really keep an eye.
So that they can be cheeky.
On the property. Just to disclaim, like, the surveillance is never inside the property. It's always
on the outside.
It's an outdoor motion sensor.
That you would have like a blink bell, everyone has, or most people have a camera with their bell so that you can check if deliveries are coming when you're at work.
Yeah, but this is also for the security of the guest who's staying, to make sure that no one is intruding.
Or any of our cushions are being stolen.
Yeah. So they'd punched a hole in the wall. They'd broken the windows, and then they left. We had to pay for all
the furniture was all
drawn on
all over.
So it was ruined, and it's just more gut wrenching when you install everything yourself.
I think it's more that you go, okay, you understand that it is a business. You're running a business, and like these things will happen, but I think that was the turning point for us, really, where we thought, I actually really don't enjoy having guests, because if I would never treat a property that way, I would never treat someone's home.
I think that's the thing. We didn't foresee, like, we know how we would be in someone else's Airbnb.
Yeah.
I tend to leave it in the same way as
clean up before you
when
go.
we found it, when we entered. But some people don't. They like to leave holes in the wall and draw on the sofa and
steal stuff.
So anyway, they left. the social housing wanted to verify the damage, and they took forever to come round and verify the damage. And the thing with service accommodation, every night that property isn't being rented, we couldn't rent it to anybody else because we needed that social housing to see the proof of the damage before they were happy to pay for it. Every night that it's not rented, you're losing money. Every night counts.
Yeah.
Every night could be 100 quid. And that's like, if you leave that for too long, that's potentially thousands just gone, and you still have to pay the landlord the rent. So it is a risk. I would say this is a risky strategy. If something goes south, you are still responsible for the rent. You're responsible for the damages.
And you still have to continue paying your rent.
Sorry.
You still have to be continuing paying your rent to your landlord. Whereas when I think this was the realization for us, that we were like, we didn't want to continue growing this.
No, it was
at
pain
all.
in the ass.
It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
We were like, owning our own properties is less of a hassle than this.
Our most recent story that we shared on our Instagram stories was actually from our own owned property, and that's the one. It's the biggest one we have, service accommodation wise, and we poured so much blood, sweat and tears into that property. It was a 200-year-old historic cottage with a side annex, and we turned it into a really quirky, modern, but still we put a lot of effort. We hired a interior designer to help us and transform this property into something that was really unique. We painted it all ourselves. We installed the furniture
because we like being busy.
We were up there till like 2-3 in the morning, and then we'd drive.
It was like, I didn't even get back till it was like 5.
Yeah, only to get up and start again. Because every night counts.
Yeah, every night counts.
Every night counts. So we were like, let's just
Time
smash it out.
Time is of the essence.
Smash it out until... I feel like that's our toxic thing. We always say, let's just smash it out.
Yeah,
as
and
if
then this was when we realised, oh yeah, this isn't sustainable.
No.
This isn't sustainable, and this is not how we want to live in our 30s.
No. So then
20s, you get away with it.
Yeah, we were like, we can't keep doing this. And the other thing is, with all your service accommodations, you've got to refresh them and make them look good every year.
That's why you need a stock room.
Every year. That's why we needed the garages. So we had our garages as an outgoing. We had so many backup pieces of furniture and replacement cutlery and stuff. And I think also just having all the stuff.
And it didn't align with us. That was also a big thing. We were like, really enjoy staying in other people's service accommodations, but actually it doesn't align with who we are. We don't want the stuff.
When you have objects and stuff, you're responsible for all the stuff.
Oh my God, it's suffocating. Like, it really is. And we were doing a business that we thought would be the new passion business, really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, because it was...
We thought it would tick cash flow. It would tick our creative juices. It would tick... I did a degree in geography with tourism. You did one in fine art. So we thought, oh, this is a combination of things that we're already interested in.
And in the beginning, it worked, but not with the Rent to SA.
No.
But with Rent to SA doing it that way, there are so many overheads emotionally and financially. And then the top of that is... all of the stuff you have to hold on to, and we're not people who want to hold on to lots of stuff.
We were doing this for like time and location freedom, but when you have stuff, you are time and location stuck.
That's true.
Even if it's in your business, just hauling things around is tiring.
No, and even if you pay someone else to do that, then that takes out of your profits. Like,
yeah, hiring a van is expensive as well. It all adds up. And the thing that is one of the most annoying things up there about service accommodation is the utility bills.
Oh my God.
Have you been on the phone with a utility
for
company?
Hours?
Oh my gosh, just trying to set it up, fixing mistakes, and you have many, many accounts.
For service accommodation, you are responsible, just to highlight, you are responsible for all of the utilities,
bills included.
So that's like amazing for a guest, where they don't have to think about that. That's why there is a market for it, because why do you want to be responsible for the bills when someone else can take that on for you and cry on the phone?
Oh my God, bane of my life. And setting up internet companies. You are in a contract with them for like a year. So that's a risk as well. If you want to exit any of these contracts with whether it's utilities, internet, you need to very carefully read the exit fees or the exit process. And I would honestly safely say we've spent at least 24 hours combined on the phone to utility companies in order to run this business. You're just waiting, and then you're passed around from person to person.
So I don't know how people do this, do what we did, and we were not managing, but all of the extra stuff that we did. I like, how do you do rent to SA whilst having a job? You can't.
No, I think
you choose either.
I think that's another thing. A good thing about Airbnb, just to like try and balance out a little bit, is you get to enjoy those properties if you are in that location yourself.
Yeah, or if you have friends and family that are needing to come and stay and they don't know where to stay,
you've got a place
and you
for
don't
them.
have space at your home, then you've got space for them. And so that has been like a huge highlight, and we've been able to house friends and family coming to visit.
Yeah, rent to SA, you have all these utility bills.
Yeah.
If you want to be an accounts manager and you like being on the phone on hold for a really long time, hearing the same music over and over again, then
I think we were going to say that our conclusion for this is that if you have a full-time job and you want to get into rent to SA, don't. That's my own opinion.
Because you're on call.
No, yeah. If you want an asset, if you want to be able to have rental income, if you think this is going to be something where you just make a bit of money on the side, please don't do it.
I'm warning you. This is a warning. Don't do it if you just want a little bit of cash. It's not that simple.
If you want a little bit of cash, buy an asset for yourself to make rental income, and that's on the side. Get a management in place. There's your little bit of cash on the side whilst you've got a property that's appreciating, that you're going to have a lovely retirement and you can still work your job. If you want to do rent to SA whilst you have a job,
it's not possible.
I want to laugh.
You can't go on holiday. Where are you going to go?
Where are you going? And then if you only got the one rent to SA and you're trying to, if you want to use management, you can. You need several.
Yeah. Also, with management on top, Ruth and I quickly learned that the efforts we made into trying to systemize the whole process, the cost of management completely eats into your profits. So there is no point. I think the main thing is there is no point doing R to SA unless you're going to manage it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're going to manage it yourself, be prepared. You now have a 24/7 job. You are on call 24/7. If you're thinking about doing this around your existing job, think twice.
Or three times.
Or three times.
Think once.
Do you like talking to utility companies? Because you're going to be on hold a lot. Do you have enough space for backup furniture that is bound to break or be drawn on or go missing? You need to have space, maybe garage space, to be able to replace stuff quickly.
Yeah, quickly.
And a van.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot hire management unless you do it yourself. I think I already said that was number one. What else were the main points? That was like the greatest takeaways. Yeah, and if you have a void, like it's going to go up. It's seasonal. If you're going to have a void, it's probably going to happen in winter. There's people going to say there's so many different ways that you can secure that you've got a guest. That's not secure. It's just not. It's a risk. It's always going to be a risk. You don't know if anybody's going to book it. You can say, oh, just target contractors. It's just
contractors. Actually, we've heard stories. So we've heard stories. It doesn't make them any better either.
No.
No offense.
There is no secure way really to do serviced accommodation. We have tried all these ways.
Yeah.
We've had contractors, we've had social housing, we've had standard guests, we've had families, we've had enough.
We have decided to simplify everything, and I am grateful for all the lessons we've learned from Rent to SA. It really has made us.
They also say that Rent to SA is a training ground.
Yeah.
I think it's unnecessary in my opinion. You don't need to do that to yourself.
Education and then buy your own. Find a way to buy your own. People have money. If you don't have money, there's a way of borrowing money.
You could do service accommodation in your own owned property, because then you've taken on that risk and you're not paying the really high overheads that like
Don't
paying,
even
paying
do
rent
that.
to someone
Just get
else.
a lodger.
That's if that's only if you're living there.
Oh, if you're living there, sorry, yeah. But if that's just would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I just think think twice. Realities, a lot of people are going to say that it's easier than it really is, or make it come across that way. It's not.
To highlight, we haven't done rent to rent where you're renting it like it is an AST,
HMO,
with a HMO, but that's only profitable. Rent to rent HMO is only profitable if you're able to make an extra room to be able to. That's your profit.
Yeah, usually it's the extra room that you earn from. But at this point, we've learnt our lesson. We do classify rent to service accommodation as a shiny penny syndrome. Everybody's different. Everybody's investing journey is different. R to SA is not investing in property. This is giving yourself a new job in a new business. If you are genuinely passionate,
if you want a training ground, actually just get your education and
shadow someone,
get a mentor. Do not. God, sounds really awful, but don't
throw yourself under the bus.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to learn as you go with rent to SA
is not the one.
You're actually you're gonna be spending more money doing that than just getting the right guidance, whatever that looks like to you. But trying to kind of figure it out by just taking on a rent to SA with no knowledge at all.
Can I also just want to clarify that when we had our sourcer identify these opportunities for us, they were on his spreadsheet and our personal due diligence spreadsheet. The numbers did not align, and we felt like
we'll go into that in another
that's going to be covered in another podcast. So it's very much about your due diligence, securing your gut. If listening to your gut, because there's going to be certain circumstances where you might think you found an opportunity, but really it's just a sale that was trying to be made. And we really wanted it to work because it made sense.
Yeah.
So we did take a bit of a gamble on it. It worked out short term, but then
it's not a long term. It's not a long term strategy. It's very much short term. And we would like to say as well that it has, I am grateful for the lessons because it has opened up being able to connect with other people on social media who have done it or have dabbled in rent to SA, and they have all come to the realization is that we've had talks with people who have come to the realization after a couple of years and have agreed with what we have been saying and been thinking this whole time. So that's been really nice to have other people also say it's not realistic if you're trying to create wealth or you're trying to do this on the side of your job. You should look elsewhere because this isn't it.
If you're fully passionate about replacing your job with a full-on business it requires a lot of attention and potential handling a lot of disputes and managing a lot of accounts and utilities and taking on the risk of the fluctuations that come with having service accommodation.
And also to add, a lot of landlords have clocked on to rent to SA, and so they are charging even more for rent, so your profit margin is even smaller. And there are mortgages, like landlords mortgages and insurances that won't let you rent to rent other people, let you allow people to rent to a company anymore because they've clocked on
it's harder to be compliant nowadays. There's a lot more red tape about it. Even councils are saying, our Cardiff properties, we actually shut down in good time because the council was literally about to double the council tax rate, knowing that business, these are technically business rates that they should be charging us for these properties. So
we're sticking to just giving people homes.
If you want our opinion is we've done it. Liked it, didn't, and then quickly hated it.
And redefined our goals and staying focused.
Focus on your the things that are going to bring you your time back. If you want your time back, your location and time freedom and financial freedom, focus.
Goal setting is so important, and you need to really, really consider where you are in your life. Whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, how much can you give to a certain strategy and be really, really real with yourself? We I guess, were stuck in our 20s mindset thinking we could do it all. And that is the truth. I had a baby that changed everything. And we realized we cannot continue to be working like we are in our 20s. And so thank you, Rent SA, for clarifying that for me, that I do not want to keep hustling my ass off.
Don't distract yourself from your ultimate goal. Most people do get into property because they want financial and time freedom. So if you're looking to learn how to do this by actually owning your assets and not controlling other people's assets, then we do have the beginner's roadmap available. I'll put the link for that down below. If you are, we don't want to hate on serviced accommodation at all. We still have our own.
We love using serviced accommodation.
We just don't do rent to serviced accommodation anymore. We'd rather own the assets, and if it makes sense to turn it into an Airbnb, then we will. We will always be open to that opportunity. So if you want to learn about how to do serviced accommodation, we do have a beginner's guidebook based on our transparent experience with.
And we'll put the link as well below for Clockwork, the book, because that was, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a freelancer,
you need to have this at your forefront with every decision you're making. If you want to ever be able to take a step away, take a step back from your business and have it still run without you needing to be there. That's a healthy business. You know that
you can take a week or a month off and know that it's running and it's absolutely fine.
Yeah. So I think we've made our point of view very clear. If you have any questions or want to share your experiences about rent to serviced accommodation, send us a DM on Instagram. That is where we're most likely to see it. Or leave us a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. And stay tuned for our stories on our Airbnb experiences and experience with sourcing agents generally in future podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.